Hi.
Hello. If I freeze, just know that it's perfectly normal and that there is nothing about me that is abnormal.
We can throw a little visual over top of you if you're stuck in a weird facial expression.
I just needed to get that, out of the way that I am human.
I am human. We are both, in fact, human.
So we, for New Year's Day, decided to take New Year's Day by Taylor Swift and turn it into two different horror stories. Kayla and I, neither of us knew what the other one was going to do. So the fact that both of our stories happen to have a similar theme was complete coincidence, and I think that's awesome. My story is a Groundhog's Day type scenario where my character finds herself waking up on January 1st, 2024, over and over and over again, with the memories from her past several years just kind of taking over her, and she is faced with everything that she has done in the past, and she knows that she did wrong. And so she has an opportunity to try to make things right so that way she can actually live 2023 all over again. Because when she wakes up again, she is back on January 2nd, 2023, all over again. And the story is just about the decisions that she makes, the people that she encounters that get her to the point where she is at New Year's Eve on of 2023. We'll probably talk about the ending right now, but if that sounds interesting to you, the link to the video will be at the end of this, or actually in the description, so that way you don't have to click all the way to the end to do whatever. But anyways, that is a brief summary of mine. Mine is 57 minutes long, so prepare yourself. And Kayla's giving me a thumbs up. Hers was significantly shorter at 20 if you want something bite-sized, and hers is about
My sweet little tiny. It's a baby. Um, yeah, I am not as satisfied with this one as I would like to be. So I'm gonna have to go back and edit the crap out of this at some other point in time. Not on YouTube, but just for myself. Um, Mine is a story about a girl named, or a woman, I should say, Naomi, and her significant other, Ren, is acting really bizarre and weird and has been for the past 2, 3 weeks. And Ren decides to rent out a hotel for a New Year's Eve party, which she finds also incredibly weird because how does she get the money for that? And as she's at this party, she realizes throughout the night other people start acting a little strange, and she starts to see things that aren't exactly pleasant. And she finds out by the end of the night that her girlfriend is not really her girlfriend, and something is taking the form of her significant other and also people at this party. And yeah, it's my theory. I don't know how to explain. Here we go. Let's move on.
yeah, I don't know why, but I'm so bad at describing my stories too. I'm just like, here is a story that I wrote.
Like,
You
here, I
can
I wrote this. You can read it and then describe it to
write
me.
Right, like, please
Yeah.
describe my story because I don't know. Like, I wrote a story that took me 57 minutes to record, but please don't ask me to summarize it.
Maybe that's one thing
Uh,
we can work on throughout
Indeed, if
this
you are a fellow
project.
writer, yeah, if you are a fellow writer, please let us know if we are not alone in this because I feel like everybody else just is flawless at this.
It's a very important part of trying to pitch your stories to agents and all that. So this is probably something we should get good at.
It is. But one thing that I am very proud of us for is that both of us managed to throw in, like, seamlessly the squeeze your hand 3 times in the back of the taxi line. Like, I
Yeah.
smiled so much when I was like, "I know what this is going to lead up to."
Yes, and I have oh, I get to read. Um, I like how yours started out. It was a perfect mirror of the song, which is "There's glitter on the floor after the party once again," and I'm just like, oh, straight into it.
Yes, I was just like, "I'm gonna throw in as many, like, lines from, New Year's Day in this as I possibly can, and I'm also gonna throw in ones from, like, other songs too, and I don't know if I'm gonna do those songs. I'm not Taylor Swift. I'm not trying to throw, like, a million
Yeah.
Easter eggs at you, but
I had a question, and I don't know if it was me being like, yeah, I'm reading a story based off of a Taylor Swift song, and I heard this very common phrase that may or may not have been also when I heard you say everything has changed, and I was like, is this just the common phrase that's being said, or is it the song, or is she referencing everything has changed the song?
Oh no, I am definitely referencing this song because I was like, you know what? At this point, I might as well.
Cool. Yeah. Got it.
I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna throw it in your face that this is Taylor Swift because I'm not, or at least for a lot of the rest of the story, it's not until like the end. Like I take like a really like long break. Like the
Yeah.
only thing that's like really emphasized throughout my story is like you'll be the toast of the town, babe. Just
Yeah.
like, how am I gonna do this?
Well, that's the great thing about things being inspired by somebody is it's not an exact replica of the song just in story format. It's anything, even like the tiniest line or a vibe could be what inspires the story. I really liked some of your description, and I know that you said that that's something you struggle with sometimes. So I wanted to point out that I really enjoyed a good bit of your description in here.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
I like the metallic rust hits my nasal cavities like a warning trigger. I know that you talked about in the past struggling with description, and so I really wanted to write down a lot of the stuff that I liked so that I can be like, here, look,
No,
see, you're actually good at it.
yeah, no, you can read that. It's more like physical surroundings is
Okay.
what I'm like really bad at, and like describing faces. So like I can't remember what it's called, but I literally cannot recall anything like in my mind's eye. Like I'm just like, if you ask me to describe my bedroom, which I'm not in right now, I'm in a spare room at a friend's, but I would not be able to tell you that perfectly, even though I'm
Mm.
in there literally every single day. Or Kayla, 5 minutes from this conversation, I will have no idea what Kayla looks like.
She got face blindness. Was it
Indeed.
like the white marble once seen now covered with massacred bodies, ripped to shreds, left lazily discarded throughout the room? I was like, brutal.
Just warning for mine, there are some strong sexual themes. I was not planning on that, but that's what ended up happening.
Sorry, I found it. Remnants of sticky gray matter soaking in liquid. Well, I can't read my own handwriting. I'm so sorry. As if something had used the fingers as a serving knife. I was like, oh, that's disgusting.
Yum.
Yum. So
Yum.
what gave you the idea for this one? I mean, I know you were going off of New Year's Day, but in your head, as you were thinking of New Year's Day, what led it to this specifically?
Actually, that's a really good question. So I started writing this end of November. I think it was more about like the whole like please don't ever become a stranger whose laugh I could recognize anywhere. I really took that line and I was like, okay, what is she going to do so that way she will never lose this guy? And what also is she going to do so that way she doesn't have to like read like the last page? Because like one of the lyrics is uh don't read the last page.
Yeah.
And so okay, so what if I had never let her read the very last page and she just gets to
Mm,
like keep reading this year like over and over and over again
I like
because she
that.
knows that it. And I think you were also inspired by that line for your story as well, weren't you?
Yes, that was the line that inspired like there was that's my favorite line in the song.
Mine
And
too.
I don't know, I had this visual in my head of just like for some reason instead of it being very sweet, it being something very sinister because I don't know about you, but when I was sitting there trying to come up with a horror story, like it wasn't really coming just listening to the song in general. It was more so just the line. And I was like, oh, that sounds very sweet, but it can be also very terrible if things went poorly. And in my head, I just had this vision of this woman and her significant other, like her girlfriend, acting very freaking weird. And had this idea of just her hearing her laugh, but like years later, and it not being a pleasant thing. but I just had to come up with a story of why she was acting weird. And in my head, New Year's Day was like my brain twisted it into like this very haunting, weird kind of instrumental in my head. And I was just like, okay, I don't have a full story. All I know is this chick's gonna hear her laugh at the end and she's gonna be like, oh shit. And I just have to come up with a reason. And that was basically what
Yeah,
happened.
okay. So your monster, because we both
Mhm.
have monsters in our story, which I think is awesome. Because again, we did not discuss this. Like, I saw that hers was titled Monster at Midnight. I'm just like, oh, yes, this is great. So let's see what we did for our different monsters.
So, do you want to
Anyway,
say what your monster is?
so my monster isn't a real monster. It's just like one that I came up with. I
Mhm.
had this whole idea about like, so glitter is sometimes there's like a meme about how like glitter is like the herpes of the arts and crafts world and how it just like gets everywhere and you can't really like get rid of it. Initially, my monster was going to be like this glitter monster that like left traces of itself like literally everywhere that it went. And then it's just kind of like, okay, like yeah, it could potentially still be that, but I kind of like the idea of like everything that she touches that's like memories from like all the years in the past, just having traces from of glitter from like the New Year's Eve party. I keep
Mhm.
saying day because it's New Year's
Yeah,
Day
I get
gone.
what you mean.
Anyways, so I don't actually think that he is any specific type of monster, but whatever he is, he can manipulate time and
Mhm.
obviously is super barbaric and cruel and extremely strong. So,
Yeah.
you tell me if that is an actual monster because it probably is.
Yeah, I noticed that there was, I remember what was it about the glitter stained blood? I don't know
Yeah,
the exact quote, but I was trying to look for it. I really liked that, and I remember thinking when Maxwell came over and then just glitter kept falling, I'd be like, I was just thinking, I'd be so pissed if someone was in my bed and there was glitter in here. I'd be like, no, sir, you're cleaning this up.
right. And she's just like, "Hi, I'm desperately clinging to this relationship so you can get glitter all over me and it's fine." Okay, so I
I don't
wanna
know.
hear more about your monster. So, like, there were, like, so many different things and, like, indicators because like, at first, Ren, like, locks the doors, she breaks the mirror, she's wearing sunglasses at night,
Hmm.
and her laughter changes, and, like, I was convinced that it was gonna be a vampire because of, like, all of those different things, and then all of a sudden, I'm just like, "Okay, this is not what I was expecting at all." Like, I like this. I
Yeah.
like that you subverted expectations, but
Well, I took inspiration from the very limited knowledge I have of changelings, which
okay.
is, they usually take the place of what is it, like young children or infants, and like the changeling is left behind and the other one's taken to the other world. And I was just like, okay, but what if that wasn't just children? And I'm, I don't know, maybe it's not just children. Like I said, a very limited knowledge of changelings, and I remember reading somewhere before that sometimes changelings will act very strange, and some of the signs is like maybe they'll like be singing in the middle of the night or something, and so that's where this Ren being weird and being up and singing in the middle of the night came from. And I don't remember where it was. I never actually saw the movie, but I remember someone talking about it, where it was a movie about changelings. And like, I know the woman saw the reflection of a child, and they had like this big gaping hole of like a black mouth. And I
Yeah.
don't know what movie it was from. And I was like, okay, so like, I don't know if that's actually part of changeling lore or not, where you can see who they actually are in their reflection. But I kind of ran with that and was like, okay, what can I do? Okay, let's make their eyes like golem-like and like freaking like bulging out, and let's make
Yeah,
their mouths way wider than they need to be because everyone finds a wide mouth creepy. Um,
it is creepy.
when you were writing yours, so did you have in your head that you wanted to have this moral dilemma, or was it something that just occurred as you started writing? Because I know you were doing this whole Groundhog Day thing, but how much of it did you have planned out before you actually started writing?
So, when I write, like, my method of writing is very much like I knew that I wanted to start with the end, basically, and So I like wrote up that scene. It's just like, okay, so she's gonna go back in time. So why is she gonna go back in time? And so I'm just like, she has to have motivation for why this keeps happening over and over and over again. And I thought about my friend or Kayla and I's mutual friends one off D&D campaign that she did, which was her entire thing was based off a philosophical question of if you knew that people were going to get hurt, but you had something to gain from reliving the experience and the people would never remember, would you do it again? I'm like, I like that. I'm gonna run with it. And then since I was thinking about that friend and all of her recommendations, I also decided to pull inspiration from this book that she recommended for both of us to read, which is The Seven and a Half Deaths of I can't remember
Evelyn
Evelyn
Hardcastle.
Hardcastle. And I was like, cool. So I'm gonna have somebody on the inside who knows everything that's going to happen. And this girl is trying to figure out everything. And I
Mhm,
just kinda, like, merged both of those ideas into one. And then, like, everything else that happened, the characters told me what was gonna happen throughout the year.
mhm.
I didn't really know, like, what decision that the girl was gonna end up making at the end, and I'm still not going to tell you what my opinions are, you can form yours for yourself. What do you think? Do you think that
Um,
she relives it again, or do you think she
I was under the impression that she was going to relive it again, and I was like, "Girl, what are you doing?" But I really liked the elements of kind of real life reality that you threw in there because when you were talking about how he was as good as divorced, I was like, "Oh, no." And then it's like,
Yeah,
"And his wife approves of our union." I'm like, "Are you sure about that?" And then you get to the point where it's just like, "You stupid bitch." I was
yeah,
like the things that we tell ourselves when we probably something else is saying otherwise.
right. Oh, yeah, speaking of okay, so I know that, Ren and Naomi had been together for a while, but, like, it was 3 weeks of this. Did she not confront her really at all during those 3 weeks about all the
She
weirdness?
did. I don't know if I accidentally left it out of my narration because I have it written down, but I was in a big rush and I know I had written down that she had confronted her and that she wasn't opening up and she thought it really strange because they'd always had such an open relationship, so she just thought if she gave her some space that that's maybe what she needed this time. And I'd even had it in there that they, like, had fought, but I remember I was trying to weave it in a more natural way, so I may have accidentally left it out when I narrated because I was reading from my Word document, and I may have accidentally not put everything in the Word document. I wrote this a lot quicker than I typically write stuff, and there are things that I may have left out on accident. Just as
I know
there are
you're
words that I misspoke and listened back after I uploaded and was like, "Oh, shoot."
I know that for Ivy, I think you said that your first draft took you about 2 to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
What was
Yeah.
your first draft for this one?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I have a start date and an end date. Ivy, I was writing pretty consistently, even if it was only like like a few lines or a paragraph a day. Whereas this one, I started it and there was a large chunk of time where I wasn't touching it because we had a lot going on. There was just all this stuff happening, and I feel like when I finally took the time to sit down and write it, everything was happening all at once. And then I was just like, I gotta get this out because I need to finish it because we're leaving, we're going to Ohio and we're in Texas. So we're going to Ohio and I'm not gonna have any time to do it then, and we're gonna be gone for 2 weeks. So I can't tell you exactly how long it took me because my beginning date and end date, there was no, it was just, I started it and then maybe I wrote a little bit for a few days and then all of a sudden, like, there was nothing. And then I was like, oh shit, I have to finish it.
Yeah. So did you have the full story in mind? Like, do you write stories with the whole story in mind?
I didn't have the whole exact story when I wrote down the first sentence, but I think I figured it out pretty quickly. And that's what was kind of frustrating this time was that I had this whole idea in my head that I couldn't quite execute because there was a deadline we wanted for uploading and life happened. So there are things like you saying, "Hey, did she not confront her?" I'm like, "Did I not leave that in there?"
And you
So,
might have. I mean, you did definitely leave in the part where she confronted her, like, when she was just dancing by herself in the middle of the night.
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and because even though I listened, I was more so listening to make sure that things weren't repeated.
Appreciate the fact that you take the writer's role very seriously, where you should always start in the middle of an action sequence. Do you
Oh,
start most of your stories like that? Because I think you started Ivy that way as well.
do I? If I do, it's not something I really ever thought about. I know you're typically not just supposed to start a story with someone waking up, which surprise everyone. This one starts with someone waking up. But I tend to ignore that. Like I tend to take that more so you shouldn't start it if they're waking up and doing basic mundane things. I personally, and a lot of people might not agree with me with it, but I personally think it's okay for people to wake up and have something unusual happen. But I don't
Yeah,
know. I guess I do because I just started the one that I'm going to be doing next month. I just started that and have like almost a full handwritten page down, and that one starts with an action as well. So I guess I do it.
right. Whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, I never really thought about it,
Yeah,
but
I do like how you started yours though, because it really kind of like because like the entire feel of your story is kind of like a mystery to me. And I like how you really just started off with like the intrigue. It's just like, okay, like what is this thing that she's hearing and like how she's going and like checking on her girlfriend and like you're just like this weird mysterious like you just like hit it right on the nose right from the very beginning that this is what your story is going to be about.
uh good. It was supposed to make people go like, "What the heck?" Because I am not if I'm writing something in a time crunch, I'm not about to pour, especially if I don't have it in mind like months in advance. I'm not about to pour a bunch of research into it when I don't have the time, when I have to work and then do all this other stuff too. So I was like, I'm taking the basic stuff that I know from this inspiration, bam, putting it down. And if people don't like it, then whoopsie, oh well. I had a question. This is like, I'm about to switch gears like really quickly. I had a question about the snake and Lola.
Okay.
Cause I was like, but
Yeah,
cause didn't he bite the other girl? And then I was so that I was a little
yeah, that was something that I accidentally messed up on and didn't realize. So I don't think it was obvious in my story, but the girl, the main character, Scarlett, is the one who kills Lola.
okay,
And
cause
I did
like
not make that obvious. Like, I think I skipped a line or 2.
okay, well, cause where was it? I
Not
have
that that
on
answered your
here.
question, but
Yeah, no, you did. I have in here and I'm trying to find it. I was like, oh, maybe Lola's, I have it in here. I'm not going to find it right now, but I know I have written down, oh, so maybe Lola's doing things. Nope. Oh, okay. Well, oh shit, is Scarlett the one doing it? And then at the end, like, oh no, it really was Maxwell because like the, so it's like I kept going like back and forth and so I didn't know if it was me just not following simple events or if you were really good at throwing people off and I was just because I was like I'm like, am I not following something that's supposed to be obvious, or is it supposed to throw me off and then this is a good thing? Because I was like, at first I was like, it's got to be Maxwell. Like it's always the dude who's doing the
yeah.
things, and then it was like, oh no, his wife kind of angy, and then
Yeah.
like they were there and I had written down in here somewhere about like, okay, well maybe Scarlett actually did do something because it had a mention of him coming back and her being in her negligee and like the champagne or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what was there when she went over there. So I was like, oh, so maybe she did something. But then like he like seemed like he I don't know what I can say on here. Uh did something to where she was not in complete control of herself. And so then I was like, oh wait, no, maybe it was him. So I was
Yeah.
like I didn't know if you were purposely throwing us off or if I was just stupid.
Yes, and I just kinda, like, dropped the ball on that a little bit. So that scene was supposed to go where there were hints that he was trying to cover it up for her. Like,
Okay.
he was trying to make it look like because he knew that there was a PI, and so he was trying to make it look like he did things even though she was already dead by the time that he came around and found
Gotcha.
her.
Okay. I wouldn't say you dropped the ball because some I feel like some people would probably get that, and it just depends on how good your detective work is.
Yeah. Because
Which
it's just like
my detective work was not very good. I was going through the stuff, so I wouldn't say that you dropped the ball on it. I say maybe some people are just going to be better at figuring it out than I was.
well, hopefully. But, yeah, I just, like, remember, like, I finally got to the end, I'm just like, "Wait, there's a sentence missing."
Oh no.
And I was just like, It's fine." Like, the gist of the story is still there, but there's a sentence missing.
I really enjoyed
Okay.
it though. I got really creeped out in like a real life kind of way with the pictures. I was like, how about we don't do that? How,
Right?
how about we don't do that to people?
Yeah,
So
I mean
you did a really good job at making me be like, And then by the time her friends actually approved of him, and she was like, oh God. I was like, of course, I had that written down. Like, typical, the friends are finally approving when you
Right.
don't need them to.
Just like, "Excuse me, I would really like him to not know about the party that you guys are throwing for me and for him to not be there," and the friends are like, "Surprise, we like him."
Friends, you guys are
Yeah.
meaning well, but you're dropping the ball.
I really liked, in your story where everybody's, like, faces were very, skewed in, like, the photos. Is that something that, like, people were noticing when in real time, or did that only show up in the photos of their faces?
That was the reasoning why people were not, why they had a phone bin and why they had to put their phones in the phone bin. It wasn't
Yeah.
to stay present and in the moment, it was because of that. I originally had in there that there was, like, a mirror on the wall covered up with a cloth, and then she was like, "But you don't know it's a mirror," but I was getting too things were getting too long, and it was, like, gonna be way too much of a this, and this thing. But,
Gotcha.
that's why there were no phones, there was the phone bin of why people weren't gonna have their cell phones, and then why the Polaroid pictures were hidden in a drawer because the monsters want to remember the night because they're living it up with their human bodies. Um,
Yeah.
but and that's why she would wear the sunglasses because in the car, if the driver saw her reflection and in the elevator, a lot of times,
Okay.
you can see this. So that's
Yeah.
basically what
So
all that was.
gotcha. So the mirror and the photos capture them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like the bit about how she wakes up and she writes down notes for herself, but then she just forgets too quickly. And so it's like Maxwell is I'm just like, is a what?
It's a great boyfriend and you love him,
He's a wonderful,
obviously,
wonderful man.
right?
So
Like,
I
he is
liked
not
that.
somebody who brutally murders your family and your friends every single year.
Yeah. Well, you were saying you asked me if I think that if she chooses to do it again, and it's like for some reason my brain is like, I think she is, because that's where my brain went, is that I think she's going to. But the other part of me is like, so I don't know, the way I was looking at it, and I could be completely wrong, was she chooses to do it because she thinks that like she loves him and things can be fine, I guess, or like it'll just benefit her, whatever you want to say with that. And then she ends up regretting it, and then it's like, let me write myself notes, and then she just keeps repeating the same thought process over and over again. So that's why, even though she was trying to remind herself, I was thinking she was still probably going to relive it. But yeah, I really liked that in the beginning. Maxwell is a, and I even have written down on there, is a what?
Yeah, I just, like it's so much in reality, though. It's like no matter, like, how much you, like, want to change something, you're only as good as, like because it's just, like you're only as good as the memories that you have and, like, the notes that you take and as much concentration as you actually wanna put on it. because
Yeah.
there were so many signs that, like, this was a bad person for her to be around,
And she
and
loved him,
instead of
so
yeah, and because I really tried to play into that age factor too, like, they're both, like, consenting adults, but he's, like, 6 or 7 years older than her, and there's just, like, a very huge difference in the emotional maturity
yeah, there's a power
of it.
dynamic, not only with his status of him in his political little area, but also the age as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because somebody in authority would never do anything bad, right?
Never. I got very confused, like, I know that we were talking about the monster earlier. I was trying to find my note, and at first, like, I think I thought he was a werewolf because it was like messy hair, kisses in a territorial way. Werewolf? So I was trying to figure out the whole time what kind of monster he was.
Yeah.
But
I
I
feel like
like
that's
when
probably the closest.
Okay. I know we were talking about this, but how Scarlett jots down notes for herself. But there was also a mention of her writing down like reasons, if I'm remembering this correctly, reasons for them to be together. And he was like, you
Yeah.
shouldn't have to write down reasons for us to be together. And so I just found it interesting how there were like notes of her like, hey, yes, this is why we work so well together. And then also there was this don't date him, and so it's just kind of like these two opposite things, but I really like it because it shows like both sides. But I like having the two opposite sides of that, and I'm just like, oh, she's a notes girly. Like I
She
feel
is.
that.
Also, I just wanted to say, like, I really liked your ending. I love that it was just, like, kind of like that moment of, like, "Oh, no, like, what is gonna happen next?" And then you refuse to say it.
Eh.
So, in my head, the changeling Ren had kind of been trying to find her for a while, or was it just coincidence?
For me, it was just coincidence.
You were saying because I was talking about, like, Ren and how, like, I thought that she had been pursuing or trying to find her for a while, Naomi for a while,
Mhm.
and then you were saying, like, in my head
In my head, it was she doesn't really care what happened. I mean, she cared enough about having her around so that she could they could take her and somebody could take her place. But once she was gone, it was like, okay, I guess, like whatever, bye. And now she's just kind of moved on. It's like no real loss to her, but seeing her, it's like it's she knows that she's still safe in the world that she's in because who's going to believe this girl? Because
right,
silly humans, they're
right?
not gonna believe this
I
stuff.
mean, the officer shows up and Penny's right there.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that was kind of what it is. It's just like she doesn't really so much care about her, but it's just more so like she knows there's nothing that she's going to be able to do about it, and she knows that she has a power over her because of it.
So it's
No,
New Year's again at the end of your story. Is
mhm.
this an event that tends to happen at New Year's, or is this just a convenient time?
It's a convenient time. Like it can happen at any time, but I had it happen specifically there. Well, one, because of the song, and
Right.
two, just because it is an event where they can get as many people together as possible and take as many people for their own. And so it's like an easy kind of way to get people.
And
Sorry.
then, speaking of ambiguity, I know it because you told me about it, but I think you ended up omitting the line. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but uh, about Ren and Brandon. So Ren is bisexual.
Oh, um, that was another thing. In my head, they both are, like her
Okay.
and Naomi. But I was really like, I wasn't writing it, and because I know people get very like read too much into things at times, and it wasn't supposed to allude to her being bisexual in any way. Like I never specified that in the story that they are. It was just supposed to be more like she's not acting like herself, and her doing this is not normal, and it's like she has no regard for her girlfriend at all. And at that point, it's just she's a monster doing monster things and trying to get close to people and make people, and then once he's a monster as well, it's like, yeah, we're having fun doing our monster shit. So it wasn't
Would
really
you say that
supposed to. Hmm?
would you say that they were doing the monster mash?
They were doing the monster mash. I did not, but I wish that I had missed opportunity. I know I left in, I think that her and Brandon were dancing together, and that Naomi didn't exactly like that. Because in my head, Naomi and Ren are both bisexual, but it wasn't supposed to allude to bisexuality in any way. It was just supposed to be like she's not respecting her girlfriend and she's acting strange again, and now in this way that is crossing a line. So yeah, that's basically what that was, and I didn't think about it until after I wrote it, and I was like, oh man.
Oh, and then one other question.
Mhm.
What happens to the changeling's original form? Does it just like become the body and like it loses its original body, or like what happens in this like lore of yours?
Yeah. Well, first, I don't know if I can necessarily call them changelings. I took inspiration from changelings. In my head, they are, they've got their little magic thing going on. So when they touch them, they are able to take the form of their body, but it's like, it's almost like kind of like when I'm just gonna use a really terrible analogy. Like when you put on a mask of somebody and it's always just off. Like you
Yeah,
can put on a Halloween mask and it's never going to look real.
right.
That's basically what it is. It's like it can fool the human eye, but it's not going to fool like a camera or a mirror. And so they are still there underneath. It's almost like a costume that the human eye just can't see. And then the humans that they take the humans off to wherever they keep their humans. And that's what's I don't go very deep into it. Like I said, I didn't have as much time as I wanted. I had an
That's
idea,
okay.
and that was about it.
I still really liked your story,
Oh,
just by the way.
well, thank you. I really liked yours. Like I said, I really liked the moral dilemma and the horrors, not only of just like of the monster kind, but of real life horrors as well. I tend to really love horror stories that bring in real life, and I thought that you did that very well. And I'm very excited for your next one.
Thank you. Yeah, that one drops. It is the fourth while we were recording this, and it drops in 9 days.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in either New Year's Day or Monster at Midnight, they will be available in the description below. You can check out New Year's Day on Ashton's channel since it is not up on mine yet, and then come back, well, not here, but on Ashton's channel on January 13th for her horror story of Betty. And thanks for watching. Bye.
You look like an e-girl mixed with an elf.
An
I don't
elf?
know why. I think it's just like the way that your headset, like the little like
Oh,
mic part of it is sticking up,
yeah.
makes it look a little bit like pointy.
I should have just put on my elf ears, just really sent it. I have those
Right.
for
I
not
believe
weird
that.
reasons or anything, but I do have them.
Thank you for specifying. We are very strong millennials, if you can't tell.